says it up there.
It says meeting now streaming on YouTube.
I saw that. Yeah.
Let's see. Okay.
Oh, it says it up there.
I think we're live.
Yeah.
All right. Let me just type in the chat real quickly, just so I know that the chat's working. It says meeting now streaming on YouTube.
I saw that. Yours is playing out of your speakers.
Okay. I've now muted it. All right. Hey, Jonas. Cool. We are up and running. Hey, everybody. John here with another lunchtime stream, and today we're doing something special. I'm joined with Dan, our lead game designer. Dan, quick mic check.
Hello, testing.
Today for the live stream, hey Lee, today for the live stream, I thought we'd do something kind of nice. So Dan joined Move 38 almost 2 years ago at this point.
Yeah, just about. As
a summer game design intern. And we just are kicking off the 2020 summer game design intern cohort. And we'll surely introduce the game designers this summer. And Dan, when he started as a game design intern, worked on a number of different things, but one of them, a number of them turned into games that were launch title games. One of them in particular, I don't think would exist or exist in the way it does without some serious dedication to graph paper, a notepad.
I actually misplaced. I meant to grab that notebook and see if I could find the old pages from it, but yeah.
If you do have that notebook, it's really a trip, because
yeah. Dan
came into the office one day during the summer internship, and he, I think the day before.
Yeah. The day before we built, yeah. So, I mean, if you want to start up the game.
Yeah.
Wow. It predates this notebook. It's my blue one, which is elsewhere. That's from the before times. Yeah.
Is that what we're calling it now? The before times?
Yeah, the before times, when the world was young. So the day before this sort of started, we had done, like, the interns had done, I don't know, I would call it an exercise where we tried to translate other games mechanics into Blink's mechanics. And me and Vanilla, who is the designer of Barry, people know that game from the launch set, and also one of the interns that summer, we worked on something we just called Puzzle. And it was a game where you took a number of Blinks and you put them together, and they sort of made colorful connections. And then when you double clicked, they sort of cemented in place, and the colors became permanent. And then you would take them all apart and present the puzzle to your friend, and your friend would then have to put blue to blue and pink to pink and yellow to yellow. And John, I don't know if you remember that day, we found that with 6 solvable with, thought and care, 7 tough, 8, 9, 10 became impossible. I think 10, we never solved one. We made a bunch of them, gave them to you, gave them to me, gave them to Vanilla. We couldn't solve them. I think I made a 10 puzzle and then took it apart and then couldn't put it back together. But I went home that night and I remember thinking, like, boy, there's got to be a way to automate this. And that's what started Puzzle101, the game.
And one of my favorite things about that is I remember you and Vanilla both were adamant that puzzles with 6 were not fun. It was like, these are too easy.
Yeah, they seemed easy, but we had also we had been playing it for like 2 hours at that point, and we had like designed it. But yeah,
and you
felt easy.
Every time you were making a puzzle, you were actually making it.
That's true. So it's that sort of that human fallacy of randomness where what humans think of as random is actually distributed. And so our puzzles had a certain similarity. We didn't make weird stuff as often. We just kind of made, oh, what's the weirdest shape we can make? And because of that, they were kind of easy to solve.
Yeah, I think, and I think that so it was, I feel like in my mind it was like the next day you came in with a notebook and it had like a spreadsheet on it. You just had a 6x6 graph, and you were like,
I was trying to work out all of the like the combinatrix, all the permutations of at the time 6 blinks, 6 hexagons in space, because I thought that if I could calculate all of the possible permutations of 6 hexagons, I could name them and then have the blinks decide on which one to be. I think that was how I thought a self-generating puzzle would work. That they would choose a puzzle from a list of puzzles and then become it. And so that was my first attempt at making self-generating puzzles was make a list of puzzles and have the blinks choose one. And then that would have been the thing you saw with me drawing every permutation.
And let me show real quickly, just in case you're tuning in and you haven't played Puzzle 101, you can watch the how-to video on the YouTube channel here. So I won't go through all the instructions, but I will just launch one puzzle so people can see it at home. When you double-click the middle piece, the 6 blinks tiles generate a random and unique puzzle. And the way to solve that puzzle is to have like colors touching. So yellow would need to touch yellow, blue would need to touch blue, and there's only one solution. I ended up explaining more about the game than I.
No, that's all right. Yeah. And this game is interesting because it has this kind of strange long development history. This game predates, as I would say, all launch titles, short maybe widgets. All launch titles predate blinks that look like this. All launch titles were at least conceived on developer blinks. And there's evidence of that in the way they're designed. And Puzzle 101 actually, Puzzle 101 the game, and John, you should tell this story. Puzzle 101 the game ultimately affected the hardware of blinks. There are changes to the way that blinks actually feel and look because of Puzzle 101. So it's an interesting back and forth. But if you want to explain how you solved that puzzle, that might be a good start. Yeah.
How I solved this puzzle?
Yeah, just like, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, when I approached this one, for example, and I think you can kind of see it on the camera, but it's a little bit faint.
You can see the blue pretty well. And
maybe if I change to speaker view, can I, let's see, pin video. There we go. So I'll do that. So I noticed there's only one blue here. It's a really good starter puzzle. And so by connecting the blue, all of a sudden I've, you know, I know that has to be the connection.
John, I think if you click that camera, it'll want to full screen that camera and make us small.
I think that's what I've done. Oh no, it's not what I've done. I apologize. I pinned the video.
Yeah, you want to pin the top down. Now you've pinned me, I think.
Yeah. Okay, I'll leave it like this in the grid view because I'm not sure if I'm understanding pinning correctly.
That's all right.
So I've matched the blues. I know that's needs to be the case. And now I need to figure out how to get these reds and yellows to all match up without any of the dark sides touching. And so this is, I think, just good strategy, which is I look for, I'm I know that because there's dark over here, I need a piece that there won't be any pieces attached here. And so I then grabbed, oh, and because there's a red over here, I know that there's gonna need to be a piece over here. So I grabbed the one piece I have that has 3 adjacent tiles and placed that there. And then really there's 2 obvious moves here. The red to red and yellow to yellow, those ones didn't have neighbors, so they had to be connected there. And then that's my.
And then you get this lovely pulsing effect. Well, I'll try and do this in order because it's a lot of, as Jonas has pointed out, sort of like interesting lore that comes all the way from the conception of this game all the way to now. Yeah, so when these were developed, John, do you have developer blinks? I don't have
grab them real quickly. I'll grab two artifacts.
Yeah. So the developer blinks, they don't have the rubber covering. So you don't get oh wow, it's very light in my room. Now you can see it on John. So you don't get the sort of blending. It was just a bunch of little individual LED lights. You could see them very clearly. You could tell them apart very easily. And so a lot of games when we started developing relied really heavily on understanding which light was lit. It was all about this face versus this face versus this face. Yeah, there you go. None more so than Puzzle101. So you can see that the lights are super distinct. I mean, they are just like super distinct. And so Puzzle101 was built with the assumption that they would always be that distinct, and that you could have a puzzle game where you'd be like, this light touches this light, and this light touches this light. And so, you know, I worked very hard on the algorithm. Ultimately now, instead of it making a list of puzzles, what it now does is it holds in its mind 6 hexagons and a map of their neighborhood. So each hexagon has like a name, which is just A through F. And then A knows that it's touching F on phase 2 and B on phase 4. And they all keep track of that individually, and they're built one at a time. So I place A in the center of this hypothetical universe, then I place B and link its neighborhood, then I place C and link it with all neighbors, then D, E, then F. And then after that's completed, I then take all the connections and assign them a random color, 1, 2, or 3, which ends up being pink, yellow, or blue. And then ultimately it spits out that information to its neighbors, and then it makes a puzzle. And it makes more random puzzles than human beings were making, than Vanilla and I were making, as we were talking about before. It is totally willing to make a straight line. It is totally willing to make a curvy line, or all of them bunched together, something that Vanilla and I never did. We were just like, no, you always got to have, like, we would just make every puzzle look like that, essentially, because it feels random to a human being. But it's not random, it's distributed. So anyway, building this and developing it, I was always working with dev blinks, and they have really distinct lights. And then when did the first pilot production hit our office? When's the first time we had blinks that look like the real blinks?
So the first pilot production blinks were, well, they were in hand maybe November 2018.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it was really exciting to get those in. They looked so like professional and so complete and like a real product. And we installed all the games and quickly realized that for games like Puzzle, where the whole design is built around the idea of identifying individual, I don't want to say quadrants because there's 6 of them, they were bleeding together. A red next to a blue just kind of looked like purple because there was no separation. It was just a big rubber hexagon with 6 lights, you know, a couple millimeters below it, but it dispersed really nicely, which made some games like Zenflow look incredible. Like it looked like this just rainbow pattern. But games like Puzzle101, which depended on individual pips of light, didn't work. And this was very frightening to me because the games I liked the most were the games that used that concept.
Well, also, I remember we grabbed them, we loaded up Puzzle 101, we brought it over to our neighboring offices,
Yeah.
and people play. And people playing would go, they're just like, it's real tough to.
Yeah, I don't know what color is that. Orange? It's like, no, there's no orange. There's red, yellow, and blue.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because the bleeding was really bad, and so this resulted in sort of two big changes. One, code.
Oh, right.
One, physical. So we realized that part of the bleeding issue was that the colors needed to be very distinct from each other in terms of like RGB. So it used to be red, which isn't, it is just a one LED color. It's like just the red light and not the other two.
Well,
And then the yellow, yeah, sorry, you go on with this, but yeah, we had to adjust the colors so they were more opposed and were more distinct.
yeah, and one of the things, so you probably noticed this on your blinks, but the red and green LEDs, they hotspot, and it's kind of a nice thing. Like there's like a little, it's tough to see in the camera here, but you can see distinctly that point for the red and green, whereas the blue doesn't, the blue diffuses and doesn't hotspot on the surface material. And so we knew that to make the blue hotspot, it needed to have a little bit of green in it.
Right. Yeah. So we had to push the other colors. Like red used to be pure red. Now it's more pink. It has a little bit of blue in it, so that it doesn't blend when next to blue. It maintains its sort of identity better. And then, like John said, the blue just got tuned a little to have some green in it, so that it maintained its identity and hot spotted a little better as an individual spot. But what's interesting is that while that did work and it did make it more distinct, we still had some confusion with some players. And like I said, what the blinks looked like was a large hexagon that was just colorful. And it didn't really allow for games to as much be about like equilateral triangles on a hexagon, which, to be fair, only Puzzle 101 really asked for. But I thought, like from a game design perspective, could be useful as a possibility. And so John had a proposed solution that ended up going into the full production blinks he can tell you about.
I'm gonna see real quickly if I can bring up a photo of the way Puzzle 101 looked the very first time, because it's so stunning. I was like, oh man, maybe we'll use this as box art. It looked like
art. I remember this, yeah.
And but it was not good for gameplay. So I'm just gonna see if
Jonathan West is here. Hello.
Oh, nice.
Jonathan West, who I had to move a meeting with, that was supposed to be now. So thank you for being flexible, John.
Oh, I think we need to, when we stream from Zoom, the other stream doesn't trigger. So we're gonna figure out how to
figure that out. Yeah.
Solve that. Let's see. Oh, I'm so close here.
Well, anyway, as John's looking for this, the thing that ultimately ended up getting changed, which was really interesting, and I think ultimately made blinks a little bit more attractive for certain types of designers, not all types of designers, was that we ended up, so John earlier, he picked up one of the earlier blinks and, peeled up the rubber, which is the diffuser for the light. Now, I don't know the specifics of it because I wasn't involved in the physical design of this, but there are now small sort of like dividers. They don't go completely to the ground, but there are little dividers. Oh, John's gonna show us. So, yeah, that's how it looked at first.
This was how the original Puzzle 101 looked.
Yeah,
Just like,
really
wow,
cool. Not super
beautiful,
playable.
organic. Those
Oh
were
yeah.
colors from
Oh,
manual.
remember those first ones we got? They had those little tiny pips of light where the rubber connected to the body.
Oh,
Remember
that's
that? Those
right.
little circles. We had to get rid of those too. Um,
Right.
yeah. But anyway, what we ended up doing was adding little structural fins, basically. I don't know how to explain it, John. Like instead of it just being a flat diffuser, it was a flat diffuser with like a wall that came down between each light. So you could actually get distinct like slices of pie of light. There was still bleed to allow for like more interesting fading, but you could, and if you have blinks now and you're playing Puzzle 1, you do get a sense that there is a triangle of this color and a triangle of this color and a triangle of this color. And so, yeah, like Puzzle
Here,
101, yeah, go ahead.
and I've got one here, so I can peel this up, and you can see the little kind of drop downs. But then,
Yeah.
so I've got here documented the very first time I like cut
Mm-hmm.
this up, and this was, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, these actually, it's not coming through as perfectly on here, but like it's
Still, yeah.
a radical change. Um,
Yeah, and what was interesting was that like this is how a product, especially a product that like has like a game, it develops. It goes back and forth. So it started with there was a piece of hardware that we were using to test the technical feasibility of blinks of tiles that spoke and emitted light, and those just because of the way they were built had distinct LEDs. And then I came onto the project as a designer and I used what I had. I used distinct LEDs to make games that used distinct LEDs. And then when the product came in, it didn't quite have distinct LEDs. And suddenly I was like, oh no, I've made this huge assumption about how people are going to experience this product. And now this game and possibly other games, widgets at the time was in development and wasn't going to work. And I was like, oh, this is really problematic. But in John and I talking about why it made these games not work and how it might not allow future games to work, we realized, okay, now the product needs to adapt to the games. Not a ton, but a little, just to give some power back. Like, it can't just be, look, the hardware is the hardware, and your game doesn't work, so scrap it. It was, okay, how can we get that back? And so, I remember that day that John, what did you hot glue those fins on? I mean, it was you put it together with an X-Acto knife in the office, and you're like, how about this? It's like, yeah, that will not only make my game work, but it'll allow for future designers to use this idea that could be really, really great. And I don't think the amount of like dividing that you decided on is a great halfway. There's still full bleed. You can still, ZenFlow still looks amazing and things flow across the whole face. But for other games like Astro or Widgets or Puzzle, where faces matter, they're distinct. You can see 6 faces, and it's great to sort of see it sway back and forth. And and ultimately, I was just really sad at the idea that Puzzle 101, something that I had spent a week of my life like formulating and programming, might not work. And so it was just really nice for me to get it on there.
yeah, I do remember that period, and very conflicted about it. I was very adamant that we could not ship games that were not.
Yeah.
It was just like, we can't ship this as is.
No, and you were absolutely right. That game would have been confusing and essentially unplayable. I mean, I could play it because I was reading between the lines. I was looking at the light going, okay, I know that purple is actually blue because the left edge of it looks kind of blue and the right edge is near a red. So like, that's blue. Okay. But I had to meet it well more than halfway to play it. So yeah, I mean, you're right. With the production blinks we got from the pilot run. Puzzle101, not a playable game. So I'm glad that we tacked back a little bit.
Yeah, no, and I think this was before you had come on as an intern. We had already developed the 6 LED blink, but it actually started where there was just one. There was just one color, and because games like Fracture didn't really need. Sorry, Ernie.
Sorry, Ernie's knocking stuff out.
Ernie's playing with some heavy toys. Games like Fracture, which Fracture was the first game that people were going, how do I buy this? Didn't even need the 6 LEDs. And Mortals, the way we would show life in Mortals was how quickly the blink was breathing. It was, oh man, if it's real close to death, it's breathing real.
It's hyperventilating,
Hyperventilating, yeah. And it was, I think we switched to 6 LEDs. One, to get diffusion, to really make it not hot spotted in the middle, but the directionality, it was like, okay, it really allows for a lot more animation. And oh my goodness, I can't believe we ever considered not.
Yeah, it's funny to think about the one blink or the one light blink, because I'm thinking about the launch titles and thinking about I would say about a third of the launch titles totally could be played with one light, like Mortals, Fracture, Wham, Flick Flop. I bet Flick Flop, you can play Flick Flop with one light. It wouldn't be as cool, but it's a one piece of information game. Like you can kind of see the evidence of, like I said, like you can see the history of the thing. Yeah.
Speed Racer would be.
But it wouldn't not work. Like it would kind of work.
You wouldn't have a direction to it.
You wouldn't, but except you would, because you'd have the fade out from the one before, so you'd have a tail. It would work. It would just be chunky. But yeah, I think that's interesting. Is like looking back at the history of the hardware. Does like if we could arrange the games in terms of when they were proposed, you would see real significant sort of. I think actually, one of the Kickstarter updates I wrote was about this. There's eras of Blinks games. There's sort of the MIT era, and then there's the kind of like early days era, and then there's sort of like essentially like my early days era, where when I came in, I kind of introduced the idea of like these need to be really tactical, light-based arrangement games. I was very obsessed with setup, play, and victory modes, and everything was very like heavily architected. And then I think the sort of where we eventually got, which is I think the best place to be, is when we eventually, I think it turned when we cracked Speed Racer and we took it from a game with setup, play, and defeat and just made it a toy. And going back and adapting that concept to the rest of the games. But all the games in that MIT era, or the early Game Jam era, they're all like they're single light games. They don't require fancy animations. They're just about tiles with identities. And so that era makes sense that you had one light when you started that era, because those games make sense with that. So yeah, I really like seeing the evolution of it.
I'm trying to think. I feel like we're coming up on 30 minutes, and there's a couple things I realize. One of them would be a common question that comes up is, with Puzzle101, can it work for more blinks? You described the design process, how a single piece creates a puzzle and then hands out pieces of the puzzles. So you actually, this one piece
So that piece in the middle is activated. So all the pieces have the capacity to design a puzzle, but only a blink with 5 neighbors is willing to do it. So when you double click that process, those other 5 flashing is just for show. They're not doing anything computational. They're simply awaiting instructions. It's the one in the center that designs the whole puzzle, assigns itself 1 piece, and then passes 5 pieces to 5 neighbors. And because of that, there is a significant difficulty in doing more than 6 or 7 pieces. Because having one in the middle who's in charge, they only have 6 faces, right? So they can only communicate 6 different ideas. So I could probably pretty easily right now go into Puzzle101 and like change a couple of lines and get you a 7-piece puzzle. Very doable, except for maybe memory limitations, but that's mine to worry about. But you could do 7 because it's myself and my 6 neighbors. Once you want 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, you have 2 big problems. And actually there's some great posts on the forum from Mark Mayer, the designer of Raid, in the upcoming community expansion, which I hope many of you were part of the Kickstarter. If not, John can tell you how to still get them. But he made a great post and explanation of how to count blinks, how to take a field of blinks and anoint one as the counter and have it count a field of blinks. This is something that, yes, hypothetically, me and Josh and John had thought about and knew that could be done, but we never, it's not a technical hurdle we ever solved. We just found reasons to not solve it. So Puzzle101 being in the core set was like, now I don't have to solve this problem. Boom, 6 blinks, 6 blink puzzle, I don't have to count. So first you have to count the blinks. You have to know how many blinks are in your world, which could take some time and is difficult. It involves sort of branching, like counting each neighbor, and then each neighbor counts its neighbors, but it can't have overlap, so they have to like mark each other out. And also, you don't want them to accidentally cut off a whole section because of shenanigans. And again, Mark's post is really great in explaining this, and his code is really super impressive. But first you have to count. And then once you've counted, you have to build a puzzle for X pieces, which means you need space in memory. A puzzle piece is 12 bytes minimum. That's the smallest a puzzle piece can be as a piece of information. And John, I always forget the exact number. How many kilobytes do we have on board, or can we use when programming a game?
Roughly 6 kilobytes.
Roughly 6 kilobytes. So I'm using 12, but honestly, I'm going to ultimately use more because the data structure of the array that holds them has data. So just holding a puzzle piece is many bytes. And so I would say, okay, I need to make 12, I need 15, I make 100. The memory size goes up because ultimately the person in the middle always has to be in charge. They have to know everything. Before the puzzle gets sent out, they have to be able to hold the puzzle in their tiny hexagonal mind. And that becomes an issue. And then the third problem is distribution. Distributing things to 6 neighbors is casual, it's easy. Every game distributes information to 6 neighbors. It's the most basic thing a blink can do. But if I have a field of blinks, I'm not just sending my neighbor 1 piece, I might be sending my neighbor 7 pieces, because behind him is 7 more pieces, 6 more pieces that need information. So now I have to pass him, here's your piece, and here's the piece for Bob and Jim and Clara, and like, I gotta keep passing, I'm naming the blinks. I gotta keep passing him pieces, which he then has to have a data structure to hold. And then once he has them, he has to go, okay, who gets these? All right, you get this, and then you get these 3 because there's more beyond you. So it just, if I had unlimited memory, sure. I mean, yeah, I could do this, but it involves solving 3 really huge technical challenges. Mark has solved one of them, so great. But there's 2 more. And then it just becomes a game design question. As I said, when we first built the manual version of this game, I couldn't solve a puzzle with 10 pieces. It just couldn't be done. And so the question is, even if I could make it bigger, is it fun? Is it playable? Is it a game? Is it just impossible? I realized that was kind of rambly, but I have thought about this. I have thought about this more than any other game on the platform. I have devoted more of my brain to Puzzle 101 than anything else, specifically because of these really interesting conundrums it brings up.
This is cool. So Jonas brings up a good point, which I really like, which is I think there's two things I want to say, or like one is in our forum. There's also a post Josh recently added for a similar counting method using, I believe, just less bandwidth for communication, so no diagrams. But the other thing I was going to say is, yes, a distributed method, not having one piece calculate the puzzle. I'm not sure. I'm not convinced. I imagine there's actually a solution there.
Oh, I'm sure there is.
And so I would
very cool.
So I put that out there as a challenge.
Yeah.
I think slightly simpler, but similarly difficult challenge is the counting algorithm is awesome. You set one blink and it receives back the number of blinks. Let's see. One thing that I would like to see, and I think we would use in a lot of games once done, is a distributed version of the counting such that at any given moment, without prompting, a cluster of blinks knows how many blinks are in that cluster. And I don't think it's an easy task, but I think it's a really fascinating one. I think it has useful applications outside of blinks like crazy.
Yeah, I will say when I was developing Puzzle 101, I actually spent a good amount of time researching like algorithms for tessellation. And I also spent some time researching alternates to the, is it called the Cartesian grid? What's XYZ?
Cartesian coordinates.
Yeah, so there are alternates to Cartesian coordinates. There are polar coordinates. There are alternates. I don't know, John, if you know this, but I attempted to build this out of polar coordinates the first time. I thought, well, maybe that'll be easier. I've got a center and then I've got, 0 degrees, 30 degrees, 60 degrees, or 0, 60, 120, 180. It didn't end up being any easier. The ultimately system doesn't use grid points. It doesn't actually know where it is in space. It only knows its relationship. It's actually a lot truer to the platform. Even hypothetical blinks only understand their immediate neighborhood. In the building of this game, which I just realized is a really fun, little symmetry that I've built in by accident.
There's a meta game.
Yeah, they are organizing themselves the way that you organize physical blinks, in that they only care about their immediate neighbors and have no knowledge or concern about anything beyond that. Which I did not realize until now that I'm saying it out loud. It's just how blinks work already. So it makes sense that would ultimately be the fastest way for me to program this thing, because it is truer, it is immediately applicable to the hardware. But like everyone's pointing out, distributed puzzle or distributed puzzle maker, Mark's post about counting, Josh's follow-up post about counting, all of these are technical puzzles that can and probably will be solved, and probably by the community, probably not by us. I may tinker with this from time to time, but the community is the one who's been pushing this forward. Raid is the most technically complex game we've got, and I coded 0 lines of it. You coded 0 lines of it. It is 100% Mark, and he has made something that I don't understand. I have a loose theoretical understanding of how he's done it. But if he was like, Dan, I need you to make changes to my code, I don't know how. So yeah, the community is absolutely like stepping up and solving these problems, and they are going to be the ones who crack these codes. And Puzzle101, if it gets made, probably won't be made by the two of us. It'll be made by over there. But I'm not sure which way it is on the screen. It'll be over there. The community is going to make those games.
Yeah, I think, and I mean, we're already seeing it. If you're watching this and you're not part of the developer forum, forum.move38.com, every single day of the past few weeks, there's been new games popping up and really good conversation. And then us as Move 38, I think, one of the things that we're heavily focused on is enabling the kinds of things that people can make, and working on new features for, being able to allow you to create more and more impressive Blinks games. So also, I wanted to take some credit and hold my trophy for Jamie and I solving a 12-piece puzzle.
Did you solve a 12-piece, or was it Spinomenos?
No, we solved a 12-piece puzzle.
How did you make one? Did you just literally make 2 puzzles and see if they fit?
Well, what we did is, you got to watch the video. The stream's awesome because it's not, Jonas, I correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's an 18-piece puzzle. And the solution, I'll say it's a little bit easier because we generated it from 3 separate puzzles.
So it is 3 puzzles. Okay. Interesting.
But you'll see what we did and how we found the solution was like really, really satisfying.
Well, what's great about Puzzle101 is like, because each puzzle is solvable, you'll know that you always have the right amount of each color. There's always an even amount of blues, an even amount of pink, and an even amount of yellow. So you have that.
So we had to break one rule, and the one rule we allowed to break
offsides to offsides.
Exactly.
Yeah. Honestly, I think Puzzle101 can be played that way if you want it to be easier, because if you break that rule, it's possible for some puzzles to generate with solutions that involve that. It's not the solution that the game has in mind, but it can happen geometrically. So it does sort of make it a little easier, but the likelihood is that it'll just be easier to solve it the way that it wants. But yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. Spinomino is kind of has an element of bigger puzzle, but it doesn't guarantee a solution, and it's not as intricate. It's more of a dominoes thing.
So I want to, before we wrap, because I think this is, I really like, I think everybody's really enjoying this, and I really enjoy this. I think we'll have more of these kind of developer behind the scenes on games. But I wanted to tease something that our first Kickstarter backers are going to be.
Yeah, I can see it now in the camera. I want one.
So this is the Ikura Orange sushi roll case that we designed for the very first, for Kickstarter backers that waited and generously have continued waiting for the fulfillment. And all of these backers, they volunteered to wait on their shipments so that other backers could receive theirs for Christmas, which we got out the first close to 1,000, like 1,500 sets of links. So, so these, they came out more really beautiful. And I can't show it on here, so I guess I'll just have to wait. But for the latest Kickstarter, we unlocked all the stretch goals, and we're going to be doing colorful sushi roll cases for all of the new sets. And we have samples now of the 3 colors. And instead of on the inside, it only being on the inside, which I think is really slick looking, the new ones are going to have the color on the outside as well. And it looks... Which,
do we know, I mean, you can tell me if this is confidential. Do we know which color is going to go in which set? Or is it a secret?
No, I think we can share that. right now it's outlined as Ikura Orange is for the core set, Wasabi Green is for the expansion, and then Ube Purple is for the community.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I feel like that's, Ube was the winning color during the community set Kickstarter, and I just feel, okay.
And anyone who backed the initial Kickstarter for 12 and just backed for the expansion, they should get the one that was most popular.
Yeah. So all three of the colors look really good. But that's the color arrangement that I'm currently working on. Cool. Well, I guess I should wrap by saying, if you didn't get to back the Kickstarter, we've got a limited time pre-order live from our Kickstarter page. You can get there and still pre-order on BackerKit. We have core and expansion sets in limited supply that are shipping within a couple of days. So if you're looking to get your hands on the core games, which includes Puzzle101, that's included in the very first pack, or the core and expansion, the 14 games that come with the initial 12 blinks, those are available on move38.com. And
Javier's asking the core and expansion, do they come with the standard sushi rolls if you order them in the way you're describing?
So from our website right now, you'll receive the default sushi roll case. Going forward from this, let's see, it will be going forward from August, all packs shipped will have the colorful sushi roll case in the box. And if you want the default black, we'll make those available separately as well. And sushi roll cases are just $10 as an accessory. So yeah, the colorful ones look really good. Yeah, I was like, oh, but black is so slick. The colorful ones are looking really good.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. Plus, as Ishmael, our CFO pointed out, what he likes about it is that when he reaches into his bag, he can actually tell the three rolls apart. Like when you're just carrying, 12 blinks with you, which are these 6 and which are these 6? Guess I have to open it up. He likes to keep them in the sets they came in. Like I actually keep them in whatever order they get in the roll in, but apparently Ishmael keeps them in core and expansion. So he's really excited to have an orange roll and a green roll and a purple roll, so that when someone's like, I want to play Astro, he's like, yeah, give me the green one. So I know some people are excited about that.
I try and do that these days, especially because we'll be shipping out samples and review sets, and it's just like, if I can just identify my case from the top real quickly.
I also carry mine like this, as I've shown John, which is it's 2 sushi rolls that I've put on half and half on each, so it's one object. This is how I carry the 12 of mine around, so that they don't get separated in my bag. Not that I'm using my bag and walking around much anymore, but yeah, I carry them like this. I'll be interested when I get 6 more to see how I can adapt a third roll into this. I might go with the 3 columns thing, but yeah, for now I do this. So if you're looking for a weird pro tip on how to carry 12 blinks, yeah.
That's gonna look cool with the 2 colors.
Oh yeah.
All right, Dan, thanks for joining today's stream. Thanks, Javier. Thanks, Jonas, Mike, Jonathan West, Lee. If I missed anybody, and Brian. So thanks everybody for joining today. We'll be streaming again on Thursday. Thursday will be not a Zoom link, so the one that you subscribe to should work just fine. And we're going to be playing, we're going to be picking another game from the forum. So
cool.
see how that goes.
All right.
Later, everybody.
Thanks.